Chilly here with Sirius Talis Moon, Mars Hour, Mars Day, Mars 2020 in Capricorn separating from an opposition to Jupiter. The Moon is 23 degrees Scorpio, and the Ascendant is with Beta Percept line to conjunct to Uranus. Venus is 24 degrees Capricorn, and Mercury is 18 degrees applying to conjunct to Jupiter in Capricorn. And I want to talk about the Saturn Neptune. Saturn has ingressed to the 27th degree of Pisces. Um, Moving forward, already basically conjoining Neptune, but on the degree conjoining of Saturn Neptune is going to be for one whole year doing the back and forth um, as of February 14, 0 and 1 degree Aries. This is my Neptune square. Okay. Me and the rest of them, Pluto, 0 degree Scorpio. So probably most people born around May 1984. And in one of the previous episodes, I actually checked that year, and it had been way more significant than I predicted. And a lot of the onsets of basically our year line or our timeline are having basically their Pluto square, Neptune square, and Uranus opposition, which is minus revolution, radioactive. Okay, it was not Chernobyl, but it was something in India. Um, a drop down of communication system, as we see now in Iran, um, and Elon Musk replacing basically the World Wide Web, and so Gorbachev took the place um, as a leader in the USSR, which would fall into the Saturn-Neptune conjunction of the 1990s. So, quite fascinating years. Maybe it's not for nothing that George Orwell wrote 1984, because we know that there was Montauk Project and similar projects that tapped into timelines and tried to predict them. Let's talk about Neptune Saturn in Aries, and Neptune as a myth, Aries as war, and Saturn as the threshold between the reality and the dream. Now, we know that both in entrepreneurship and manifestation, a lot of the reasons that I know a lot about combat is not because of my experience as combatant. Like I said, I was high school. Like many people, I was quite suicidal in high school. I did not serve in the army. So my knowledge is actually coming from onset experiences, both my facing death, but also the fact that I'm entrepreneurship oriented, and a lot of the combat tactics about manifesting a reality, creating a reality. There's a lot of people who are inspirational figures that come from, let's say, martial arts or combatants or pilots, and even in filmmaking, the many sayings and imageries that we would have from combat, including the fact that most of our entrepreneurship is basically, we're probably, our big technological ideas that could risk mankind. And by the way, Elon Musk had that with a chip with Neuralink. Elon Musk and I had the same idea in different years. No, I don't think he plagiarized my idea. I absolutely think there are many people who thought about that. I thought about it around 2009. And then again, when I was learning about chaos theory, we learned about the fact that in the 60s and 70s, they revived chaos theory, and then they used that to regulate the heartbeat. And naturally, I said, why not the brain? Okay? And so there was a guy that actually made it a reality, and that's Elon Musk. And then I got to see something that I would probably get to see if I would develop chips that try to regulate neural activity. And that is people with PTSD going in and out of hospitals with those chips not really being successful. And we would be marketed just like with many other treatments, chemical and not. Okay, even ayahuasca. Okay, or even essential oils. Okay, to make it closer to something that I actually practice. So this is where People would come in and out of hospital. We would only be marketed, which means that Elon Musk will only be marketed the cases. No, I'm not wrong about it. He doesn't have full transparency as a founder. Okay? I'm not here to defend Elon Musk. I'm just saying that I think as an entrepreneur, and I say, well, if I had developed such company and in lower rank positions, and I could sleep at the workplace, it doesn't matter. In the lower rank positions, I would be exposed, particularly if everybody is so stressed to appease me as the founder, and particularly if I work so hard and am passionate. And we can jab at Elon Musk, but I remember how I was as a filmmaker, and it wasn't quite easy to appease, even though although I was the most patient person. I had my meltdowns. So if people would try to appease me, they would show me the successful cases. They would not show me the many people that died, that went crazy, that Frank Olson on everybody. And I would think I have a great product, and if there is any problem, that problem can be solved. And you hear me saying that a lot of time here as an astrologer. They have the solutions. They have all this. Okay, and sometimes the solutions, like I said, with solar energy, we're still mining the minerals from the same bottom of the ocean around Greenland and Congo. I don't need to say Congo, Congo, Congo again, because just like in 1984, which we had with Nicaragua, now Congo is on the map again, and people are actually going to define or seriously considering to define the minerals that are coming from Congo as conflict minerals. That would create a shit ton of change in the awareness around the area. So a lot of entrepreneurship is so intermixed, and all of us people that ever had a great idea that could be applicable but could affect also human lives, both positively and negatively, that is experimental. We know that our first frontier is terminal diseases and war. This is why a lot of the things are tried on in military settings, and unfortunately, um, one of my ethics consideration is prevention of war, because this is a part of medical ethics even, and technological and entrepreneurial ethics. Now, after this long disclaimer, as we talk about Neptune is not only the dream and filmmaking and drugs, it's also the myth. And when we talk about combat, okay, a lot of the chaos that goes through, okay, for example, when people, when there were, I know it's not drawing I'm not here to draw anybody's empathy. I'm talking about combat situation. People invade a house to kidnap people. One of the Israeli people's soldiers comes to these people that probably already know the Israeli tactics and tells the kidnapper, you don't want me to make balagan, okay? You don't want me to basically grow. And when he says balagan, he's tapping into a primordial chaos structure that would be the chaos of war. There's supposed to be a righteous chaos. And here is the thing. Here is the Saturn Neptune in Aries. We did not in this millennia have that. And basically, the person warns him that he is about to onset into the primordial chaos, in which that kidnapper has to think very well. Is he acting in the flame of what is right? Is this particular action of kidnapping these particular people acting in the flame of what is right to supposedly protect or liberate his people, namely the Palestinians? If he's not, telling him you don't want me to make code word balagan, mess, chaos, is tapping into his nervous system and reminding it to offset the programming, because what would ensue is the chaos of a child saving his parents that are about to be kidnapped, and he has more of the flame of defending from than the person who is coming to kidnap them. Okay? even if he is acting to save his people. He's now confronting the military of supposedly, let's say, the occupying forces. If he wants to kidnap the soldier, fine, but if he going to kidnap civilians, then the flame of a child saving his parents from being kidnapped, using and tapping into the primordial chaos, is stronger, and indeed he managed to neutralize the kidnapping of his parents. Now, why am I saying that? And you can repeat this couple of minutes and play them on repeat until you get that point, because what I'm about to continue relies tremendously on that point. Okay? For example, when there was the risk that there's going to be invasion here, I was innately prompted into that primordial chaos myself. And like I said, I was not going to the army. I did not go through the army training and so on and so forth. Um, and this is basically what's happening with the Saturn Neptune in Aries. It's going to be a year long, and it's a high combat frequency. Many people in war situations that the war is serving something other than protecting their people, namely wealth consolidation that they and their families would not only not see anything from, but would be, let's say, if I take back the example of that soldier, to save his parents was the right thing. That being said, the war is wealth consolidation on the minerals in the region of, basically that region of the Middle East. We can name the current countries. I don't know if those will be the same names in 20 years, including any name. And we cannot be aware of that. And so when basically um, this soldier and his family, and the soldier that tried to kidnap, and I'm calling him soldier, not calling him guerrilla, I'm not calling him freedom fighter, and I'm not calling him terrorists. Soldier to soldier. The reason I'm doing that, because it's going to pertain to each and every conflict situation. None of them is protecting anything by doing anything other than neutralize kidnapping. It's not liberate. If I see Mama Taliban's back in Gaza after literal what UN described as genocide, then I see that this was not something that was not effective. Now, with the Saturn Neptune in Aries, we no longer have the privilege of mimicry of the fire, of the flame of basically Ares, the mythical god of war that defended from rape and killed the rapists. We are running out of the threshold of mimicry. And the flame of what is defending from violence and what is perpetuating violence is going to be as clear as day. None of the armies and militaries that were trained to mimic Balagan, to mimic the primordial chaos, in order to control the minerals and wealth consolidate them through ritual abuse, is going to withstand the actual war timeline. The primordial chaos origin is not to loot the gold of others. The primordial chaos, if we see, for example, a mother cat that's protecting its kittens, okay? It doesn't matter what she meets. she's going to get into attack mode. That's the primordial, and guess what? She's likely to win because she's defending life. Now, the primordial cow's origin is that Aries, world degree, the head of the baby, Saturn, the threshold, the limit to, the accumulation of the actions, the mimicry of Balagan cows, primordial cows, or whichever word you find for that, meets the origin. You know what my mom did 7th of October when somebody knocked on the door? She opened the fucking door, stuck her head and said, "What?" Knowing that she could be standing facing Hamas. I got freaked out. But she's a mother. That's the origin of the primordial cows. And let me tell you something, doesn't matter who you are, what your rank is, you wouldn't want to be there at that door opening. The fire of what is right, of defending life, is something that's, once the mimicry of cows faces that, it returns to attack the commanders. When the mimicry of primordial cows meets primordial cows, it makes a U-turn. I have a Facebook friend who is a healer, and she does things with breathing and so on and so forth. I wouldn't always agree with her about anything, but this is her testimony. After 7th of October, soldiers come back from war, one by one by one by one by one. I also raped. Am I like Hamas? How much of the world? Now, we're not talking IDF anymore. IDF is almost a non-issue in respect to what is going on in the world right now. The world has effectively nullified any Israeli rescue mission by design. And when they do that, you know that they're gonna start something worldly of the type of situation that they would usually send Israeli rescue teams. Namely natural disasters, world wars, and conflict areas, which that zone was quite an expert in, by design. And so, once that mimicry of cows, the extortion cults work by the mimicry of the primordial cows. They try to tap into, and when people, and here is the thing, even if people are not aware of extortion cults, the primordial fire has this, how should I say that? Because the primordial fire is to defend from violence and to protect life. Bless you. The world, in at least a millennia, did not know what is Saturn Neptune in zero Aries. It's not in Capricorn. Capricorn, what happened? People got real about where the money went. It didn't go to serve the nation. Saturn Neptune, it went to extortion codes. Basically, the money in the Soviet Union went missing, and people say we work for the motherland. And they were, the child of the professor was playing in the same kindergarten as the child of the person who was cleaning the kindergarten, which means that the parents would talk to each other and the children would talk to each other, and everybody knew that if the money went missing and they all served the nation, something here is not working, and that's not communism, that's some sort of corruption. It wouldn't be if the state was the people, if they actually owned their corporation and had a say in it and it was transparent. They didn't have another red book. Okay, like I said, it happened to both capitalism um, and communism. Both were funded by schools, different schools of the same oil company, Standard Oil. The petrodollar and the Bolshevik Revolution are one and the same. I think you say, Shirley, did the petrodollar fund it? Of course. Good morning. It's, okay. Currency. The sovereign coin. Shout out. Now, the world has not seen the mimicry of chaos running into the original primordial one in such intensity as in Saturn Neptune going into, because what would be the worst strategy of people with Neptune in Aries? The mimicry of, the mythization of, and the mimicry, the personification, Aries, the I am of Ares. And so we will have the mimicry of Ares fighting actual Ares, who actually abolishes, who actually yields zero rape society. Drop the Peter rings, I am. What are the Peter rings? They are the extortion calls on wealth consolidation with ritual abuse on natural resources to grow people that are continually going through rituals that whatever way they're marketed, whether they're dissociated or not, they are coming in intervals to sustain basically a perpetual war state, but more so important than war, a perpetual mind control state. The mimicry of Ares is running into Ares. That's what happens as of February 14. This is why, and on the 0 degree, which is a world degree, but it's also the head, it's the foundation of everything. Anything sovereign or anything that calls itself sovereign meet actual sovereignty. And it's not trauma bond based. Trauma bond is the opposite of sovereignty. A free man did not oppress another. Definitely not oppress women. Nor does a free woman. Okay, when they exposed the 52 trafficking houses in Haredi cities, namely Bnei Brak, for example, in Israel by the Israeli Ghislaine Maxwell, not the Giselle of France. Okay? It was a woman running them. Or one would say a mimicry of woman running them. And again, was she not tortured? Of course. It's not about shame and blame. It's simply that the mimicry of Ares meets the authentic Ares. And a lot of thresholds will be transformed. A lot of people that were in the mimicry of Ares facing the actual Ares are actually relating with their own primordial sense of self that they never before had the chance to access. Okay? It's think about the Me Too. We had a very close approximate to that with Uranus conjoining Aries squaring Pluto in 2017. Okay? Some women were like, this is my name. This is the name of the offender. Names are Mars, Aries, ruled by Mars. And people started realizing that, hey, the gaslighting was not working anymore. Okay, they believed because they knew that they saw it. But more than that, some of the people saw that level. The continuation of that would be going from, this is me, that's the person that did that, I'm not ashamed to show my face, hey, let's show his face as well, that's the person that did that. Recording. Recording. You see, the frequency of silencing is still operating. It's not a frequency of silencing by intent. Is that people are afraid of the power of this truth because it's wrecking their entire foundations, whether it's their spouses, their family, their siblings, the co-workers, everyone around them, the people the comedian that they listen to dissociate, the politician they love to listen to dissociate. But it's beyond that. It's not stopping at that. It's going from, hey, that's the person, to, wait a second, before I was assaulted, that person was a child assaulted by children and adults having to assault children. And then he ran into the primordial fire of a woman outside those circles saying, no, and say no with each and every cell of the body for the duration of the time that they couldn't say no. What will happen if those children will point the fire, the actual fire, not at the women that won't continue that type of bloodline, but at the rapists? That would be their siblings, their parents, their brothers, their brothers, their brothers in blood. That's the thing. The older brothers, the younger brothers, the elderly of the young, the youngest of the elderly, the young commander, the old combat soldier, the young veterans, the old veterans. Are they not in PTSD because they were raped and raped? So why do they want to differentiate between trauma from rape and trauma from war? When zero rape society will undermine the fundamental mechanism that prompts the mimicry of war, the looting of minerals by means of war that is not to defend life, but to exploit everything living and not living. Is better per se minima today. Alcohol. Now, very likely all of us will be surprised, and I'm saying that not excluding myself from all of us. Because what is the foundation of things? So today she was minima. Yes, if on the 15th, then today she was minima. And I saw that bodies upon bodies that turned into stone when she was minima. Now, Mars. What is the fundamental of extortion cults on a global scale? None of us know. Only when that would, it's one of the things that only when they are destroyed do we understand. When I was basically raising awareness, cannot say assisting because people usually are there by the merit of the situation. It's kind of people have to defend themselves, and it's almost impossible to be assisting other than raising awareness. And when people were escaping violent relationships, men and women, then one of the things that stood out, okay, at those first of all, the atmosphere of attempting to harvest the energy of the actual primordial fire of war. And the primordial fire of war is not energy to be harvested. Unless the people who harvest it want to turn into those stone anonymous graves, and that's their legacy, basically. Attempting to corrupt the truth was only exposing more of the lies. And I saw that people that escaped violence, we see that it's the fire of truth. It's not every fire and it's not every frequency. Here is the thing. The mimicry frequency is not far from the truth frequency. People may believe what they say, but if what they say is not true, Saturn Neptune in Aries. People can be mad at the people that speak the truth, but they'll still have to face the falling tower of their lies, falling on them, with them in ground zero, as the place becomes ground zero. It's their brothers in blood that were corrupting the blood of truth by ceremonies, by rituals. In Aries, all of that is undone. Truth burns in a different frequency than lie. The mimicry can create an image, but Saturn Neptune in a world degree is where each to themselves burn in their own flame of truth. It's not a fake it till you make it. In fact, for the many people that authentically try to fake it till they make it, That's when they make it. But they have to make it, they have to turn from the mimicry to truth. It happens naturally. Okay, I remember, and let me give you an example of skill and entrepreneurship. When I was learning astrology, I did interviews with astrologers to learn astrology. I had the privilege, okay? I knew how to interview people. Now I was doing one-to-one reading, then I was challenging myself to make a forecast, and then boom, something happened. It just happened. I was delineating a chart, something came out of me. Now, it's true, I have Uranus and Ketu in the 10th, which means that astrology or the frequency of astrology or claircognizance is not new to me. But in the beginning, it's not that I was faking it till I make it. Uh, but definitely, I was learning the skill and I was practicing the skill until I became the skill, and it just happened because it's with my keto. I didn't have to work hard for that. It's not that I wasn't working hard. I wasn't feeling that I was. I wasn't feeling that. Okay, if somebody, let's say, would argue with me or whatnot, I would go to astrology as my comfort zone. This is what it means, Uranus with Ketu, or co-present with Ketu. Astrology is the comfort zone. Okay, now I'm going to have Uranus opposition. It means that Uranus is going to go through my Rahu. So it's both where I'm going and where I came from. Okay, that's. Now here is the thing. Why were they raping people? To basically dissociate their personality and identity. What happens when fractured identities try to become one? The focal point is the person that raped them. So many identities of offenders will be exposed. It would be like the ocean is filled with, it's a red ocean of basically names of lineages and families, mythical families being exposed for being rapists, for trying to mimic the actual primordial chaos that defends from rape. What is defense from rape is the defense of identity, of the I am. Why? Not because sex is shameful, but because the sexual energy basically is the life energy that is in the identity and the I am. And that is going to create chaos also within First Nations, particularly about the topic of sexual sovereignty being equated with sex work. And how was it preserved within the First Nation, within the tribe, that allowed for people to believe that to rape is to liberate? There would be zero escape, 0 degree Aries, zero escape from the foundation of the truth. Not to the bloodline, not to the native, not to the First Nation, not even to the I am, because without zero rape society, there isn't an I am, let alone sovereignty.